Hello everyone, and welcome to today's video. I hope you're doing well and going to have an amazing day. Today, I want to talk about the very first live wrestling show that I ever went to. I was a 15-year-old bespeckled, pimpled-faced teenager, and my father begrudgingly took me. The show was a live televised episode of Raw that came from Albany, New York on April 1st, 2002. Not only was the episode special because it was my first time seeing a live show in person, this was also the very first show of WWE's first brand split. This was where they had a massive roster from their acquisition of WCW and ECW, and then they split all the talent up amongst their two shows. My father and I were basically as high up as you can go. The event was, I believe, sold out, or if it wasn't sold out, it was very close to being sold out. But when we were there was only one row that separated us from the very top of the arena. I was definitely nervous whenever I was standing up. My fear of heights would start to kick in. When we first walked in, I had to take a look through the curtain and see the set. I didn't realize that Raw was going to be getting a new set. So for one, I was a little surprised to see this, and at the time it came off as underwhelming for me. It wasn't until the weeks moved on and they got the kinks out of the system that the personality of this new set was able to really come alive, and it became one of my favorite wrestling sets of all time. Before the main Raw episode would start, they actually taped an episode of Sunday Night Heat, and looking back at that card quickly, that was a stacked performance right there. You wouldn't see this kind of star power nowadays on Main Event or another B show. Everything was done out of order, as this was going to be a pre-taped episode that would be airing on Sunday. The only order that I remember from this episode was the second match of the night was the main event, which was Goldust versus Big Show, and just before their match, they taped the intro pyro that would kick off the show. The four matches that they had for Sunday Night Heat were as follows: Scott Hall versus Crash Holly, Tommy Dreamer versus Shawn Stasiak, Jacqueline versus Jazz for the women's title, and then Goldust versus Big Show. I remember when Big Show had made his entrance and he came out onto the ramp, my father let out an audible, "Holy shit, look at the size of that man." After these four matches, they redressed the ring for the broadcast of Monday Night Raw. At 8 p.m., WWF's signature played over the monitors, and when it was over, we were looking at Ric Flair holding a brand new title on the big screen. In storyline, his character had gained control of Monday Night Raw, and Vince McMahon was confined to SmackDown. He welcomed us to the Ric Flair's era of Raw and showed off that shiny new toy for Triple H, the current champion, and promised that he was going to sign Stone Cold Steve Austin to an exclusive contract to Raw that evening. The Raw signature had then started playing over the big screen, and then we got the intro pyro for Raw itself. We then got our first match of the night: Rob Van Dam versus Booker T. To those who know their work, you can probably figure out what kind of match these two had. Rob Van Dam is extremely agile and a high flyer, while Booker T is very much a striker. The two had amazing chemistry together, and I was so torn as to who to cheer for because I love both of these performers. Rob Van Dam was the Intercontinental Champion at the time, and he defended his title successfully against Booker T. I'm going to give this match an overall 4-star rating. Both men were portrayed very strong. It was a short match, but they still were able to tell a compelling story, and it was a lot of fun. It was the perfect way to kick off the live show. But then the overarching plot kicked in. The main story for the night was that Vince McMahon was also at Raw that night, and both he and Ric Flair wanted to sign Stone Cold Steve Austin to their appropriate rosters. Vince kept getting thrown out of the building, the first time being comically done by the Big Show. He'd work his way back in, and then they'd play the No Chance in Hell theme song again. I believe I heard that 3 or 4 times throughout the night, and really, for a while, I was good without hearing it again. Before I get into the next match, I just want to bring up, it's incredible to watch the old footage nowadays, and to see all the signs at the arena. Sure, you see a few at modern shows, but nothing like then. This was basically the wrestling Twitter page. In 2002, this was how the fans made their voices heard, by making signs. And instant art that it's sad to see has gone. I wish we'd see this level of creativity in artwork again. So the next match is a short and sweet one, but it's still a lot of fun because it's from two performers that I loved growing up, Spike Dudley and William Regal. Even though William Regal is always a dastardly heel everywhere outside of Great Britain, I still had to cheer for him. I freaking love this guy as a performer and as a character. Now, I couldn't find video of the whole match itself, only of this recap from the next week. While Spike had made his entrance, William Regal put one of his pairs of brass knuckles into the turnbuckle, but the referee saw and put him in his pocket when Regal wasn't looking. Comically, Spike wasn't going down without a fight, and when William went for his brass knuckles, they were nowhere to be found, to which Spike hit his Dudley dog and won the match in a huge upset. For this match, I'm going to give it 3 stars. It was short at only 3 minutes and 44 seconds, yet both men worked extremely well together, told a compelling story in just that short amount of time, and everybody had a good time in it. It was a great underdog taking out the bigger opponent story, and we got to see the dastardly villain be defeated for once. It was kind of nice. The following match that we had was Bubba Ray Dudley challenging Raven for the hardcore title. For me, this was my match of the night. These two performers had been working together for so long beforehand that they knew each other so well and they knew how to put together a good story. Bubba needed this win as he had just split from his tag team partner Devon, and WWE was starting to push him in a singles run. So there was always that air of he's doing it for Devon, he's doing it for Devon. The props that they had were absolutely perfect, and I've always loved the imagery of Raven coming down to the ring with a shopping cart filled with props. I do want to take a moment and point out this one spot, because my father, who does not like wrestling at all, was cringing when this happened.
Now what? Ray set up a chair there in the center of the ring in this hardcore championship match.
Uh-oh, reversal here.
Oh, man!
We heard that all the way at the top of the arena. It was nasty. So after a devastating Bubba Bomb, Bubba Ray Dudley was able to pin Raven and win the Hardcore Championship. I'm going to give this one 4 stars. Again, this is a fun match. They were able to bring out a plethora of emotions to the crowd and not just have it be, I'm going to hit you with this stop sign for 5 minutes, but we're going to mix in some wrestling moves and have some fun with this. This match is still a standout as to what weapons matches in wrestling should be. The next segment, I'm just going to keep it brief. Ric Flair is having a ceremony to give Triple H the brand new Undisputed Heavyweight Championship belt. The Undertaker interrupts this ceremony, cuts a promo about how he wants a chance at that new belt. Triple H comes out and gives his old belts to Ric Flair and tells him, "You want that belt? Let's has fight right now." Undertaker then says, "No, let's has fight at Judgment Day," and then goes backstage as Triple H proceeds to pose with the new belt as they go into commercial break. I absolutely love the new design of the Undisputed Championship belt, and I think that is where the WWE peaked in its design of championship belts. As much as I like the big cookie WWF Championship belt, the Undisputed belt is almost the final form and the top of the Winged Eagle design evolution. The only WWE shop replica belt that I have is the one of the Undisputed version 2 championship belt, just because I love the design and also the history that I have with it, getting to see version 1 of the belt being introduced to Triple H on this night. Match number 4 for the night was the Hardy Boys taking on Mr. Perfect and the Big Boss Man. They didn't tease this match to us, so it came as a nice surprise. It was exactly what we needed. It was a short and sweet crowd pleaser and palate cleanser to kick off the second hour of Raw. And also, tag team wrestling is my favorite form of wrestling. The Hardy Boys, of course, are the Hardy Boys, and these two veterans of Mr. Perfect and the Big Boss Man, while on paper, it doesn't work. These two work together very well, and the four were able to put together a good performance. The veterans basically dominated Matt, and when he was able to tag in Jeff, there was some explosive offense from the Hardy Boys that ended the match very quickly. Now, as happy as I was to see the Hardy Boys win, I was equally as disappointed to see the Hardy Boys used as a catalyst to help build Brock Lesnar. He had made his debut about 2 weeks before at the Raw after WrestleMania and had just been targeting little peons to make them ragdoll and make himself look much bigger. And this led to a short one-sided feud. Hell, I'm still kind of salty about this 21 years later. Overall, I'm going to give this whole presentation 3 stars. Match itself was great, but the beatdown from Brock Lesnar at the end brings it down a star. I think they should have chosen somebody else for Brock Lesnar to have his first feud against. it didn't really benefit anybody in hindsight. And when WWE realized that it wasn't working, they quickly dropped the feud. Next comes the worst match of the night. Trish Stratus versus Terry in a paddle on the pole bikini match. It's hard for me to just say that. 15-year-old me was happy to see Trish Stratus. Maybe I was mildly amused at the time by the thought of the bikini match, but the novelty wore off very, very fast. The whole ordeal was just a way to set up Molly Holly's heel turn. There are so many better ways they could have done this. Trish Stratus was the greatest wrestler of her generation, and Terry Reynolds is just a swimsuit model who was married to Dustin Rhodes. That's the only reason how she got that job. This whole segment gets 0 stars. You don't even get a 1 star for trying. This was just awful. Alright, I don't want to think about this crap anymore. Moving on, we then had our main event of Kane versus X-Pac. I think this was the 30th time that the two of them had met over the course of their careers. I love Kane, so it was great to see him, but against X-Pac again, didn't really do much for me. The storytelling wasn't doing anything different. It was just a little chicken shit heel trying to take on the big babyface monster, and he needed his heavies to back him up. Then there was a DQ finish when Kane went for his chokeslam. Kevin Nash and Scott Hall then just jumped on Kane, to which Kane was saved by Bradshaw, who had heat with the NWO, after they had a scuffle backstage earlier in the show after they found Bradshaw's abandoned poker room and set up shop there. I'll give this one 2 stars because nothing went wrong. It's just we'd seen this before. There wasn't anything really new and original for this match. At least nothing went wrong by the performers. However, this was the historical moment when the Pyro Man was fired after he completely missed Kane's cue to summon the Turnbuckle Pyro. And now for the finale. Vince McMahon and Ric Flair both meet in the ring where they keep saying about how they're both going to sign Stone Cold to their show. This goes on for a few minutes, and then Stone Cold Steve Austin comes down to the ring, making sure to give his turnbuckle salute at every side. And yeah, I was happy as hell to see this as a kid. Steve Austin then teases with McMahon in the crowd for a few minutes, hinting that he's going to go to SmackDown. What follows is still one of my favorite punchlines in all of wrestling, even 21 years later.
This contract of the night, April Fool.
So Ric Flair starts to celebrate, and he kind of has himself a little one-man party, to which Austin eventually loses his patience and gives him a stunner. Austin picks up his contract and signs the one for Raw, and then continues to start having beer in the turnbuckle corners. The show went off the air, but not before Vince got up once to get another stunner. After the show went off the air, Austin kept doing his turnbuckle corner beer bash. I'm sure there's a name for it. I've never heard what it's been coined. Vince and Flair each got another stunner before they rolled out of the ring and made their way out. They kept blaring Stone Cold Steve Austin's entrance theme, which I was happy about because that's one of my favorite theme songs of all time. And then after consuming a bunch of beer, Austin went around the ring meeting with fans, giving high fives, shaking hands, hugging people, and just being the conquering hero who's still an everyman. So my overall grade for this show is going to be a B+. The show does a lot of things very well, but the glaring negatives are so bad. I definitely look back at it through rose-colored glasses, and I didn't realize when I was a kid how historic a day this actually was. In terms of wrestling history, there were many people on Reddit forums who thought it was so cool that I got to, one, go to the first show of the original brand split, and then also one of the final shows where the company was still called the World Wrestling Federation, because not 3 weeks later, the whole company would be rebranded as World Wrestling Entertainment. Well, everyone, thank you so much for tuning in today. I hope you enjoyed this break from the norm, and hey, maybe this will become a more reoccurring thing. In the meantime, guys, take care of yourselves. Bye for now.